Welcome to Million Dollar Women. I am so excited to be presenting my next guest, Angela Lauria from the Author Incubator. Now, just before I introduce Angela, I just want to share a little story about her. I actually met her a few years ago when I wrote my book, Better Videos, with her. And I have watched her create a phenomenal, amazing, incredible business through the last few years watching her. And I'm so excited with what she's going to share with you today. So welcome, Angela.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I can't wait. And what year was it that we met?
Well, you were the photographer at my wedding shortly after you wrote the book.
That's
surprise
right.
Wedding with a surprise photographer. So that was September of 2015.
Oh my
and
God,
I think we were in a
nice.
mastermind that year in 2015.
2015. I'm not good with dates. So 2015 is when we met. And just your company and your growth and what you've achieved in that time is just incredible. I mean, did I read somewhere that you were in the top 500 companies or something in the US?
Yeah, we're 274. And then I literally, in today's mail, got that we're in the Virginia Fantastic 50. Your company has been identified as one of Virginia's Fantastic 50 companies for 2020. So,
wow.
Who knows? We're always winning these awards now, which is just kind of funny.
But when I met you, you had this small, you were still quite small and you were doing smaller numbers per month. And I remember you had some big goals. So I can't wait to dive into the pathway and just some real gold for the audience. Just tell me about your business.
Yeah. So we have, it's a book coaching and kind of self-publishing company. So we work with experts, healers, coaches, wellness professionals in getting their books written, published, and promoted. So part of the program is me as a book coach, and I have other book coaches on my team who help you get your book finished. Part of the program is helping you get your book published, and I have a whole publishing team. You can either self-publish or we'll act as your agent and find you a traditional publishing deal. And then the third part of the program is helping you promote the book, marketing, business model, business plan, actually getting the book into people's hands and hearts and changing their lives. And we kind of have a marketing agency to help with that.
Wow. Awesome. Fantastic. So tell me about your goal. So did you always have a dream to create a multi-million dollar business, or where did that come from?
I definitely didn't always have a dream. I always knew I would be an entrepreneur, and I tell this story a lot, but I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. And when my dad was 12 years old, he decided he loved hot rods. He got his first issue of Hot Rod magazine and decided he wanted his own hot rod. So he started shining shoes on the steps of St. Mary's Church. And when he was 16, he got his first car, took it apart, put it back together, souped it up, sold it. And that was really the beginning of his business. And so I grew up always thinking, well, sometime between 12 and 16 years old, I'll figure out what I love most in the world. And then I will go do that thing and make lots of money. And so to me, being an entrepreneur was like natural and just a very easy decision for me. I didn't have a dream beyond that. Like, I wanted to make money doing what I loved. And I always did that. I always made money doing what I loved. I started the Author Incubator, which was a path to 7 and now 8 figures and, maybe eventually 9. That path started for me in 2014.
Well, tell me what happened in 2014.
I turned 40.
Okay.
I turned 40, and at 39, I had a classic midlife crisis meltdown where I was like, is this it? So I was always making money helping people write books, but the books I was working on were not my passion. They were lovely. I did technology books. And in fact, the book where I had my meltdown, I was doing a book called Windows Server Backup 2.0.
What a sexy title.
It was
So
a pretty sexy book, let me tell you.
did
I
you
used
write
to,
that? So you
yeah, I
write that?
ghost wrote technology books. I used to hang out with all the developers and network engineers in very cold rooms, talking about things I didn't really understand or care about, like Windows Server Backup. And then I would write books about these very technical pieces of software. And look, there's nothing wrong with backing up your Windows server. I for sure think everybody with a Windows server should, immediately back it up. But I knew that it wasn't my life's calling to do that work.
Yep.
And it seemed like at 40, if I didn't make a change then, when was I going to make that change? Like that felt like if I don't change this now, I'm going to be a ghostwriter for technology books the rest of my life.
And what was the catalyst? Was there something online, or was there a message, or was there something that actually was the catalyst for that decision?
Oh, I think the catalyst was my birthday, but in 2007, so I was 30 something, 35, 36, something like that. I got my first life coach and started doing my own work and became passionate about life coaching. I didn't want to be a life coach, but I was very, very passionate about personal growth. And a lot of times when people find life coaching, they become sort of evangelists, maybe drug pushers a little bit. And I was definitely one of those people that was like, you should do it too. And I was kind of trying to push life coaching on everyone. And I think I got really excited about the idea of not working on technical books anymore, but actually working on books that I cared about, which were books about changing the world, hope, healing, transformation in people's businesses and their bodies and their relationships. All the stuff that I was reading, I suddenly had a vision for those books in a way I never had when I was still an entrepreneur, but more of a freelancer, gun for hire kind of thing.
And when did you start the Author Incubator? What year was that?
Yeah, so that was, we published our first books in December of 2013.
Okay, wow. And the Author Incubator now, so you've gone, how many books have you in total published now?
I should know this number. It's over 1,200. The last time I counted, it was 1,200 and something. I actually, in June of 2019, it was 1111. And on June 11th, it was 1,111 books. And I decided I would stop counting at that point because that was such a good number. So we'll say 11 and 11, but it's a little more than that.
I love that. So let's just talk a little bit about what was the thinking around money when you grew up?
So I have a great money story. The idea that was in my family, there's always that, you'll see that saying, children learn what they live. This was never talked about. I never got a memo on it. But growing up, I thought that everybody did what they loved and made lots of money doing it. And the only people who weren't making money were people who weren't doing what they loved. So if you wanted to make lots of money, you would do what you loved, and otherwise you wouldn't make money. And I was 21 before I realized this wasn't true. My roommate was a girl named Stephanie Inglis, and her dad was in his 50s, and he was retiring from Aetna Life Insurance. And I got invited to the retirement party. And Stephanie's family always had money. They had a nice house. And so obviously I knew her dad had figured out what he loved between 12 and 16 years old, and he was doing that. So at the retirement party, I said, Mr. Inglis, I just have one question for you. I've never heard the story of how you fell in love with insurance. And he was like, oh, Angela, thanks so much for coming, and sort of, gave me the double tap and walked away. And on the drive home, I said to Stephanie, I tried to ask your dad for his story, but he never told me. Do you know the deal? Like, how did he fall in love with insurance? And she's like, fall in love with? My dad's hated his job every day of my life. I'm like, what do you mean he's hated his job? She's like, nobody loves insurance, Angela. Do you think I love my job at Bill Bateman's, which was the seafood restaurant she works at and I worked at? And I was like, you don't love your job at Bill Bateman's? What do you mean?
Wow.
And
That must have been like the Santa Claus story when you found that out.
I was so shocked. I was like, why would people work if they weren't doing what they loved? I'm so confused. And she's like, well, I don't know what I love, but I need a job. I was like, well, that's a terrible idea. Let's immediately figure out what you love. And did she find that out? Yes, the answer was project management. She's an amazing world-class project manager and super mom now.
What an amazing way to grow up, thinking that everybody loves what they do and they get paid really well for it. That's a fantastic belief. I love that. Wow. Yeah, so it's been, I've had different amounts of money in my life, but I've always believed I would have plenty of money. So at some point in my life, plenty of money was $80,000 a year. And, now our business will do $15 million in a year. So but the number doesn't matter. It feels exactly the same to me now as it did at $80,000. It just felt like, yeah. You can do more. You can do more and be more, and you can influence and you can, but I couldn't think bigger than $80,000 when I was doing $80,000 a year. Like, that was as big as my personal capacity was. So I think money meets you at whatever your capacity level is. And as my capacity has grown, there's just been more money, but then there are more ways to spend it. Yeah, absolutely. Like on employees, and we have 2 buildings. We have a lot of overhead. So things don't feel that differently. Yes, my house is bigger, and yes, we fly private, and there are things that are different, but my life doesn't actually feel that different. I do not get into a bathtub with cash and roll around. No, sure. That could be the next publicity photo. Could be. Awesome. So tell me, how many years did it take you to get to 1 million? So say from your $80,000 to $1 million. I can't tell you. 2015 was the first year we did $1 million. So 2013, I made a little bit of money, but not much. We started really in December, published our first books in December. So 2014, we did 250,000. 2015, we did $1 million. 2016, we did 3. 2017, we did 6. 2018, we did 10. And then 2019, we did 15. Wow, that's fantastic. And what did it feel like when you did reach that $1 million goal? Like, did you check the numbers, and did you celebrate? Like, do you do something to celebrate the milestones in your business? I do. I highly recommend to our authors that you decide in advance what your milestones are and then pick a reward. And so I can't remember. I think my $1 million reward was probably when I had my first piece of art commissioned. So I've definitely had goals. I've had music commissioned, art commissioned. Those are my favorite things are investing in art and artists in different ways. For sure. I've had a piece of jewelry commissioned. We bought really big crystals to celebrate some of our accomplishments. So that's been fun. So you have something different that you always do go out and purchase to celebrate and value what you've created? Yeah, and to just sort of note that milestone. I remember the first time I did this, I don't even know the brand name now. So I had a rule that everything that I bought, clothing-wise, shoes, clothing, bags, jewelry, I would never spend more than $20 per item. So if it was a pair of pants, if it was a shirt, if it was a dress, if it was a necklace, nothing, I wouldn't spend more than $20 on any item. And the first big milestone in my business, which I think was a $27,000 month,
in, I want to say April of 2015 or April of 2014, sorry. And that month I bought myself a pair of $400 shoes. And I don't even remember the brand name, but they were like the most expensive shoes I'd ever bought in my life.
Do you still have them?
I do still have them. I do still have them. They're very nice.
And so what actually happened with the Angela, talking about self-image of who you become to create a multi-million-dollar business. So the Angela that I've seen develop over time online has changed, in your thinking, even the way you dress. So what happened, or who did you become over that time? Like, what changes did you make internally? Did you hire a stylist? Did you find there were some key steps that you took?
Yeah, I mean, I did hire a stylist for sure. And I thought about my image in ways I never expected to.
Has that helped, do you think, the growth of the business and how you show up?
It has. It's more right. It's more about how I show up. So I think we have a mutual friend, Allie Cudby, who helped me find a bra that fit, interestingly. And
yes, I think we got the same one.
Yeah. And that's right. We did. You were there for that experience. And that really, for me, changed things fundamentally, foundationally, as Allie might say. In that I saw how when I felt good in a bra, I was more focused. I was more present. I was more creative when I wasn't like tugging on an uncomfortable bra. And I really didn't believe it was possible for me to find a bra that actually fit and felt good. And I didn't know that was possible. And that really changed things. And then I changed my hair and my makeup and things I always thought were frivolous and stupid, because I realized when I felt amazing, then I was more creative. I was a better coach. I showed up at a bigger level. So that's definitely changed for me. The other thing I would say that changed is just how I manage people. So when I first started in business, I thought of people as you would pay them to do shit that you didn't have time to do or weren't very good at. And now I don't think of my team that way at all. Now the way I see my team is like co-creators in my mission. And so it's my job to be super clear on my mission and where we're going. And they're not just doing the overflow work. They're actually doing the thinking to figure out what the work is.
I love your training that you had online recently, and your new book. Your new book is all about team. Make them beg to work for you. What a fantastic title. And I love what you talk about in there, that and then your dad's lessons too around that was so powerful, because I haven't heard anybody talk about empowering their teams the way that you do. And I just think it's so incredibly inspiring, because your team are everything.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can have people who work for you, who you give money to do shit. And mostly they'll be, in my experience, more work than what you pay them. You're almost better off to keep your goals and your scope smaller than to just pay people to do shit, because they're going to do it wrong. It's going to irritate you. And then you have 3 jobs. You have explaining to them how to do it. Then you have cleaning up how they did it. And then you have doing it yourself. Whereas if you just didn't have them in the first place, you could just do it yourself and have less work. Or you can have what I have, which is a team, and so that's fine. So just do everything yourself. You could have, an assistant or somebody who does a couple things for you, but you have to keep your business small. Or if you really want to scale, and where we're going is to 100 million, if you really want to scale, you actually have to get alignment on the values and this sounds all, make it very concrete in my book because it sounds all like our values are, I don't know, kindness and over delivery or some bullshit, but it's not that. You have to know why you're in business, how you want to change the world, who you want to serve. You have to get clear on so much shit. And then you have to go find people who have that same mission. If you can find people with a shared mission, they will want to do your project as much, if not more than theirs, if they're not naturally an entrepreneur. And many people are not naturally entrepreneurs. So when they hear, oh, you could get your mission done without having to start a business, they will work as hard for you as you would work in your own business. And that's when you can really leverage a team. Otherwise, you have people working for you who make more work than if you just did it yourself.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's like that whole, if they see something in it for themselves, they believe in the cause, then they're going to go extra miles because they have the same beliefs that you do, that you can grow together and empower them. And be interested in what they want. It's not about always doing something for you.
Which is like annoying because as an entrepreneur, you're like, can you just do this? Can you just file it? Can you just do, like, why is this so fucking hard? But it's hard because they can't get their head in the game if it's not for their own vested interest.
Yeah.
Once they see their vested interest and their head is in the game, then you get the advantage of all their smarts.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you don't get any of their intellect and they just do dumb stuff that seems designed to drive you batshit crazy.
That's a fantastic lesson. I love everything that your book is about, creating a team, because definitely if you're looking to scale, definitely go and get that book because cover up, because it is incredible. And it's the best book I've seen about growing a team and scaling with a team that I've seen. So what I wanted to also go through now is I'm fascinated in the steps that it took. Like if somebody's watching that wants to create, say, from $100,000 business to $1 million business, I remember studying this a few years ago. I just would be fascinated with the exact steps and the exact pathway and just write down notes, and I've still got them all somewhere. But I'd love to know your most important steps or pathway that somebody needs to consider when wanting to create $1 million business.
Yeah, so there's a lot of resistance around these steps I have found. And what I want to say is there are lots of paths and your way is your way. I always think about this with dieting. All diets work, but they only work if you actually do it. Mm. So if you read the diet and you don't follow it, it's not going to work, right? So
absolutely.
But they all work. So there are lots of ways to get to 7 figures.
And what's your pathway?
For me, the number one thing that I did was I only sold one thing. Mm. I sold one thing, one package, one program to one ideal client, customer avatar. And I focused on becoming the best in the world at the one thing I sold, which is books that form the basis of a business for life coaches and other people in the wellness space. But I really market just to life coaches doing a book that's going to build and grow your business. Uh-huh. I love children's books. I read fiction. I love poetry. I'm obsessed with poetry. We don't do any of those books. Even though I'd like to, I'm not the best in the world. I love creative fiction memoirs. We don't do them. I'm not the best in the world. But if you want a book that's going to generate clients for your service-based, heart-centered business, I am hands down, no questions asked, the best person in the world to work with. And I know that. I've worked with more people in that space than anyone else. I've gotten better results than anyone else. And I made a decision to be the best in the world at that long before I actually was.
And so the pathway is, create one product, really focus your energy on one thing.
Decide what you want to be the best in the world at. Like that was my first step. What's the thing that I literally want to be the best in the world at, that I'm going to study going to wake up thinking about, I'm going to go to bed thinking about, I'm going to read every book on, I'm going to go to every conference. I'm going to focus all my marketing around what is that thing that I want to be the best in the world at. That was the first thing I did, was decide that. Then I wanted to do everything related to that and have different offers. And I wanted people to tell me what they wanted to buy. And once they told me what they wanted to buy, then I was going to give them a price based on my time, I guess. And then I wanted them to say yes. And it did not work out that way at all. So what I found is I had to be the leader. I had to tell people how I could get them the result. Because when they would tell me, okay, what I'd really like is I'd like you to work one-on-one with me. First of all, mostly they wouldn't know what they would need, so they wouldn't tell me. Yeah. But some people will tell you, some people told me, and that was not the way they were going to get the result.
It's so true. People, if you ask the questions in market research, which I do every now and then, they don't know. They just know what they know. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's a terrible way to get a book done. So I'll give you, for instance, many, if not most of my prospects think the best way to write a book is to interview 100 people. I don't know who put this earworm into people's heads, but the number of times people tell me, I'm going to interview 100 people. Stop. Don't interview 100 people. It's a terrible idea. So if they were the ones designing the program, they wouldn't end up with a book. So when I was willing to become the leader and say, here's how you get a book done. By the way, you can write a book however you want. But if you'd like my help, here's how we're going to do it. When I dropped the story, the customer is always right. And I decided, hey, if they're going to pay me a lot of money, I should probably be the one who's right. That was the huge breakthrough moment for me. Huge. And it had much more to do with confidence than designing the product. Because the product wasn't, it took me probably 3 years to get the product together.
There is so much unknown that, yeah, stepping out to be the leader is important, and having that confidence. And we talk about this in our workshops because a lot of Australians especially come from this humble background that they don't talk up what they do. And we say, look, it's so important that you talk up what you do. If you're not confident in what you do, then how can you expect your customer to actually value and have confidence in you if you're not confident in you?
Yeah, it's too much to expect. That's not how customers work. Now, you don't have to be cocky and be a jerk about it. You don't have to be salesy. But humble. If you wouldn't buy it from you, yeah, it is. Like, if you don't think what you're doing is good enough for people to invest, you shouldn't be selling. So that's where to start, is getting really clear on what you're selling and why it's valuable. And I really did that upfront work. That made a huge difference.
And what about mindset? You know, the subconscious beliefs around the pathway. Is there any crucial things that you found that you worked on, or that there are things that you did personally or to create that mindset?
I mean, for me, I'm a student of the Life Coach School, Brooke Castillo, and the Life Coach School podcast, Self-Coaching Scholars. And so I use Brooke's model to make sure that I'm choosing thoughts that have the greatest benefit to me. So I'll give you an example. I have a weird ex-boyfriend stalker who made like a hate site about me. It's very middle school. It's super cray-cray. There's a point where he talks about how, you know, she says I dated her, but I would never date anyone that old and ugly. Like, it's like totally, it had my husband's Tinder profile from before we were married. I don't know how the hell you find somebody's Tinder profile, because it's not like you can search it. But somehow he found my husband's Tinder profile, put that up. He had like pictures I texted him on the website. The whole thing made me want to die. And then I did this work and I was like, how do I want to feel about this? And I really wanted to be proud of myself that even though some guy was trying to slut shame me or cyberbully me, I would keep going.
Mm.
And I really wanted to have a filter for my clients. I wanted to make sure I was only working with the best of the best. And I started to get really grateful for this site, that anyone who found that site and resonated more with this crazy ex-boyfriend, I didn't want to talk to them on sales calls anyway.
Mm.
So I realized he did me
Filter.
this huge service of filtering my clients. And then I realized when my clients would ask me, like, what do I do if somebody says something bad about me? What a great service it was to show them that website and say, what do you wish I did? You wish I apologized to him? Do you wish I quit? Would your book be done if I quit because I was scared by this guy? And so, yeah, I mean, I think the Byron Katie word for this is a turnaround.
Mm.
But for me, I learned how to manage my thoughts really early, even before I became an entrepreneur, using the model from the life coach school. And then when things happened that would get me,
Mm.
maybe it's getting a cease and desist letter, or having somebody copy all my content, which happens to all entrepreneurs or whatever, I had the tools to say, okay, how do I want to deal with this? Who do I want to be? What would the person I want to be, what would the $20 million me or the $100 me, how would they react in this circumstance?
Fantastic. Powerful. I love that. So what are the three biggest challenge personally? I mean, they probably go back to back, but are there three biggest challenges that you've had to work through to be where you are today?
Yeah, building a team for me has been my hardest. I'm on the autism spectrum. I am not super likable. I'm a 13 percentile on agreeableness on the psychological tests. And so building
I
a
don't know what
team,
any of those mean, by the way.
it means it's really hard for me to
Okay.
manage people and not a natural skill.
Okay.
So I'm not diplomatic. I'm not friendly. I'm not kind. I don't even really value those things. I have very low empathy. Means I'm also super innovative and nimble and smart. And I have lots of benefits, but there are lots of, positive attributes. But managing a team was a really hard one for me to learn, and definitely a lesson that I got smacked in the face with a lot of times in a lot of ways.
Did you put somebody in place to manage? Is that what you do in
Eventually,
that
yeah.
case? Yeah.
Yeah, eventually that's what I did. It took me a while to figure that out, though. I tried to get better at it on my own and then got mad at myself for failing and beat myself up a lot, and took me a while to figure out the right coping tools for me with that. So that was one. I've also had, this is like a flip side story, but I've had amazing mentors. But then I've always kind of been the, I don't know, go to the head of the class kind of girl, even in school. And so I outgrow my mentors really quickly. And that's been hard to really have someone to grow with me. And I think that's been a big challenge. And then just being a mom, I have a shared custody situation, and just the logistics of the travel required in my business, and being the mom of a little kid and the mom guilt that goes around with that. That's probably the next biggest challenge that I've had to.
They're huge. They're big things. Those three.
Mhm.
Wow. So do you have any wealth games or any little game that somebody could play to expand their money mindset that you've learned through mentoring or that you've done yourself to expand your wealth mindset? What's one
Well,
little game someone could
the
play?
biggest thing I can tell you, the way I've grown my revenue is by focusing on expenses. So I start by deciding how much profit I want, which I think for everybody should be no more than 50% and probably no less than 10%. Our number's 30%, but somewhere between 10% and 50% should be your profit. Most people are going for 90 to 100% profit, which just shows they're not a CEO and they don't really understand how money works. So you're never going to make 100% profit. And until you understand that, you won't make how much money you want. So I always start with expenses and starting with what I want to, what I want to spend money on. You don't have to spend it until you make it, but if you can't identify how much money you're going to spend this year, you won't be able to identify how much you're going to make. So I focus on what's my cost per client. How much do I want to spend to deliver, and how much do I want to spend to acquire a client? And then I can work backwards from that. So I figure out how much I want to make as a percentage of what I want to spend. And I think most people don't even think about what they want to make except to say as much as possible, and then assume they're going to keep all the money and get shocked that you have to spend money to make money.
Also, the actual cost of requiring, or how much does it cost in marketing and lead generation, or even for somebody to come on board and work with you, is a lot of people don't understand that.
Right. They just think I'm going to make money, and then when I have it, then I'll hire someone to do some of the things. But that's sort of the wrong order of events.
So if somebody doesn't have that money mindset, would you actually recommend that they find somebody to look after that side for them if they don't have a numbers mindset, or learn it?
I think the only way to be successful is to suck it up and learn it. I've never met a single person who's like, actually, I didn't meet this person. But there was an interview. My favorite podcast is called How I Built This, which if people don't listen to, they should listen to immediately. And every single podcast tells the exact same story of how people built their business. And they always have to figure out the money stuff, with one exception. I think it was a business partner, but the woman, Eileen Fisher, she's a clothing designer, and her episode of How I Built This is fascinating because she clearly never figured out how any of the money worked. I think she had a partner who wasn't, I think they may have broken up now, and wasn't in the interview. And I'm like, wow, she either won the lottery or had a business partner who knew business, because none of what she's saying makes sense as a business person. So I've never really met anyone who's like, I never really understood my cost to acquire clients or my cost of goods. I just made a lot of money and never figured that shit out. I'm not saying it's not possible, because I heard that interview with Eileen Fisher and I was like, oh, okay.
It does exist, but
on
know your numbers. Do yourself a favor.
Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, you'll always see that they say, like, know your numbers. And when somebody doesn't know their numbers, they don't give them money in the Dragon's Den.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why you can't be a CEO if you don't know your numbers.
Okay, so last question. So we're all about following your crazy ideas. I'd love to understand, now you can create more and you can do more and you have more impact in the world with what you're doing. What's some of the crazy ideas that you're wanting to do with what you're doing?
It's funny. I think my crazy ideas have gotten me into trouble with my team. So a lot of times I do them as black ops, or I call them skunk works. So whenever, like, my team, everything runs, it's my product. And then I'll come in and I'll be like, let's do this fun thing for a limited time. Let's offer that. No, everything breaks. So now my crazy ideas are like, I run them separately. I sometimes hire people separately. I have a separate company where I could do my skunk works.
Skunk works. Why the word skunk works?
I don't know. It's like a software term.
Oh,
I don't know what it comes from. I'm sure it's Googleable, but somebody can write in and tell us. But it's like a black ops side deal. So I've been working lately with a lot of my heroes, people like Sherry Salata, who is the executive producer of The Oprah Show, and Marianne Williamson, best-selling author of A Return to Love. And so creating with my heroes has kind of been the fun, creative thing I've had the opportunity to do. which I'm super grateful for. And, you know, it generates some revenue, but I don't really do it for that. I do it more for the experience of co-creation.
And so what would be a crazy idea that you're working on at the moment? Like you're co-creating with your heroes, but what is an area that you're really passionate about or that you fight for? Like what's one thing that you just want to make a really huge impact in the world? And I know you do with all your authors, which is a ripple effect, but yeah, what is that thing that you want to really impact?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm really interested. This is esoteric, but I'm interested in the rise of the divine feminine. That doesn't mean I work with only women, although I do work largely with women. And what I'm interested in is feminine leadership versus masculine leadership, and how what a lot of people think of as feminism is very external. It's like supporting women's rights and equal pay and the Me Too movement and pro-choice. And I'm for all those things, let's do it. But what I think is true feminism is changing the underlying structures of society. And right now, most of business is based on a patriarchal model of having to get things right and launching them and having one shot, because if you blow your load, there's no chance to move forward. And the divine feminine model is multi-orgasmic. So you have multiple chances. There's not a time when the door closes. There's not a waiting period. You can do things imperfectly. You can flow. You can change. You can iterate. And I think that level of flexibility that goes with the divine feminine is redemptive for men and women, because we're all operating under the tyranny of the patriarchy. So my brand of feminism is really overthrowing the patriarchy by changing underlying business structures and proving that you can have a top performing company from a revenue perspective when you're running everything through a divine feminine model instead of the traditional unconscious patriarchal models.
Interesting.
That's really what I spend time on, but it sounds very nerdy, girl. So if I lost you on that part, don't worry about it. We help people write books.
The one last thing that just popped into my mind was you went to Hawaii recently, and you had this, because I love the esoteric subject. I could spend all day talking about it. Is what happened when you went to Hawaii and something happened magically? Can you share that? Because that's really cool.
I had so many magical things there, but are you talking about my experience with Isis on the lava? Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened there? What was your problem that you went
so
to?
I had so many magical things happen in Hawaii, but I had lost my voice, and very hard to run a company where you talk for a living and you do not have a voice. And I did all the things to get it back. I did gut healing. I hired wellness professionals. I did acupuncture. I did everything.
How long did you lose your voice for?
Almost a year. So I lost my voice in February, and then I got it back on the lava, which was October. So 9 months.
Right.
And so I did all the things and nothing worked. Or maybe it worked and it was all delayed into this moment. And then I went to the lava, and while I was in Hawaii, I worked with a traditional Hawaiian healer who told me I needed to renegotiate my contract with Ursula. And I said, Ursula, the sea witch from A Little Mermaid? And he said, yes, that Ursula. And I was like, is there like a real Ursula that I just don't know? And he's like, sure. Okay. So I had to renegotiate my contract, and I wrote out a new contract with Ursula where I promised to celebrate the divine feminine in everything that I did in this contract. But when I did it, I didn't really believe it because it sounded kind of like bullshit. And so then he told me to set an intention for a way that I would know that that Ursula signed the contract. And I'm very literal and I hate shit like this. And so I decided if I saw an octopus, then I would know Ursula signed the contract. And a few hours later, I went to dinner at a friend of a friend's house. And when I walked in the door, there was a huge, freshly painted portrait of an octopus. And I was like, why is this octopus painting here? And she's like, oh, I don't know. My daughter was bored today and she painted it. And I was like, okay, that's mine. Is it for sale? I think she painted it for me. Let me tell you a story. And then that night, maybe it was the next night, when I was on the lava, I had a visitation from Isis, who is obviously, part of the divine feminine goddess code. If you've read the book Sophia Code.
Did you sleep on the lava, or you just went to
slept
visit?
on the lava.
You slept on the hard lava all night, just no blanket, just.
Yeah, so we were in a tiny house. One of my authors has a tiny house on the lava. By the way, you should go. It's magical. It's called Phoenix House. It's on the Big Island, and you can Google it. Airbnb loves it. It's like one of the top Airbnb properties of all times. And one of my authors owns this place and a couple other houses on the lava, newest land on earth. And while I was on the lava, Isis came to me, and I got this whole download of a lifetime that I had spent in Italy, in Pompeii. And how I was actually in the Isis temple praying when the ash was falling from the volcano, and my whole family escaped, but I stayed with a friend praying because I thought that was the right thing to do. And the big lesson from that lifetime that Isis reminded me on the lava was, your job isn't to pray and to worship the divine feminine. Your job is to get out there and do it. You shouldn't have stayed in the temple praying. You should have been out there with your family and helping your family. And we can't make a difference just by praying and believing these things. We have to take action. And that's what this lifetime is about for me. And I think when I lost my course, that's when I lost my voice.
So you went to your friend's house, you saw the octopus, and you still had no voice. So what happened?
No, my voice came back that next night when Isis came. I saw the octopus. I knew that Ursula had signed the contract. And then the next night, Isis came to me. Ursula is just another manifestation of Isis. So Isis came to me on the lava, and I reaffirmed my commitment and woke up with my voice back.
So this was a dream, and then you just woke up and your voice was back, and you're like, and you know what I love is sometimes you don't know the pathway to what you want. As long as you focus on what you want, some really interesting ways and ideas present themselves that you go, I don't know how that's whatever.
And look, I did other things too. There was lymphatic drainage. There was a bone setter. There were a bunch of Ayurvedic treatments. Like, I just frankly took a week off and laid on the lava. Like, just taking a week off probably did a whole lot of good. It wasn't the only thing I did, but it was very clear when my voice was back.
Wow. And it all led up to that moment, but you were still led and you still followed the guidance of what you needed to do to get your voice back.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, because I love that. Whatever, if you are thinking of, or if you have crazy ideas, follow them. Do you have any more inspiring words that you want to leave our audience with? And how can
I think my most inspiring advice and my most true advice is the reason I am as successful as I am is that I'm willing to suck. I'm willing to do things wrong. I'm willing to publicly fail. I'm willing to put things out that don't work. I know you don't see it. I promise you it's there. I highlight it to my clients. Out of every 10 things I do, 9 of them are complete and total disasters. I just do more things than you, and I'm not ever trying to get anything right. So I talked about how I was at $3 million before I had a student center. But I know a lot of people that won't release a product until they have a beautiful student center, and then no one buys it.
Yeah.
So perfection or anything similar to getting it right, just the thought, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to waste any money. I don't want to hire someone if I'm not sure it's going to work. I don't have those thoughts. I have like, all right, let's try this. And I have trust that I can put it out. And if it's awesome, we'll make a lot of money. And if it sucks, which it most likely does, we'll move on before anyone even notices or cares. Nobody's looking that closely at what you do.
True. But in your case, you're an influencer online as well. So I have actually...
I fuck up all the time. I did a launch two, I don't know, maybe it was 2 months ago now, but total unmitigated disaster. Like I make so many mistakes. I've hired people that haven't worked out and done a big announcement. You know, we've solved all the world's problems. Here's my new person I hired.
Yeah.
Like disaster.
How about the weight of success? Because you've got also, oh no, we're going to finish
Pretty
soon.
big disaster.
the weight of success.
Disaster. It's a beautiful, wonderful film, but it took forever to make. It cost a ton of money. There was no return on the investment.
Yeah.
No, dumb, huge disaster. Really nice movie. You should watch it. The Weight of Success. Go to theauthorincubator.com/The Weight of Success.
I watched it and I love that interview. Amazing, that guy that you go neck to neck with in the studio. That's a fantastic find.
Yeah, I think it's a great movie overall. Like I think it holds up as a movie, but didn't get any clients. Didn't make any
how
money.
do you know that though? Because I think that as far as your doco out there, it's about brand leverage and you being out there on a different platform. How can you measure that?
No change in cost per client, no change in traffic to the website, no change in leads.
More PR? What about PR?
No PR. Yeah. We got, I don't know, I've probably had 20 TV interviews, but no traffic from it. No traffic, no clients, no reduction in cost per lead, no organic traffic.
Interesting.
A lot of people telling me I'm awesome.
But it's not converting in dollars. Yeah, interesting.
I'm not proud of it. I am. It's a wonderful accomplishment. We won, I think, 10 awards, and it's great. But at the end of the day, it's one of the 90% failures that I have. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not proud of it and I don't talk about it and it wasn't a great experience. But I just think everyone would look at it and because of the way I market it, think it was a huge success.
Yeah.
But most shit I do doesn't work out. And that's fine. I knew it was a risk and I might do it and it would go big. And mostly...
It's one of the most valuable things that you've shared is that be prepared to fail and don't get it right and just keep going and publish.
And spend a fuck ton of money on shit that fails. Budget for it and spend it. You are not going to efficiently spend your money. That's why you have to spend at least 50% of what you make. Because to get the ideas that click, you have to do the ones that don't.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. There are so much gold in what you've shared and your wisdom and what you've been through is priceless. So thank you so much for coming in and having a chat to our audience because I know they'll get so much from this interview. And if they want to find you or apply to be one of your authors on your website, do you have applications for people to fill out?
Yep, the authorincubator.com. You can find all my books for free in the library, and you can go to the authorincubator.com/apply and apply to work with us.
And the thing is with Angela's books, you cannot put them down. They are very addictive and I don't read very often. I'm more of a listener. So to say that about Angela's books is something.
Yeah, go get my books. They're fun reads.
So thank you. Thank you so much for...
Awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. So thank you so much for joining me and stay tuned for our next guest. You don't want to miss it.